This show is proudly supported by Habitats at Home, Australia's leading PVC reptile enclosure specialist. Check them out on Instagram and Facebook at Habitats at Home, and be sure to visit habitatsatHome.com.au if you're in the market for a new PVC reptile enclosure or other reptile accessories. Massive thanks to Tyson over at Habitats at Home. We'd like to thank our podcast sponsor, Bay, reimagining reptile keeping through innovation. They combine quality, design, and function to create high-end 3D printed reptile products. And if you've got a unique setup or problem, they'll craft a custom solution made just for you. Check them out on Instagram at Bay. This show is proudly supported by Dan from Red Earth Reptiles. If you want to drool over some of the best looking green tree pythons in the country, check out Dan on Instagram at red_earth_reptiles. G'day and welcome to Under the Heat Lamp with Joe Mack. Today is episode number 42, I believe, and I'm joined by Mick Bender. How's it going, Mick?
Good, mate. Thanks so much for having me on.
No, it's a pleasure. I'm bloody stoked to have you on. I reckon we've got a fair few bits to cover. I reckon this should be a pretty good yarn.
Yeah, definitely.
For anyone who's unfamiliar with you, can you just give us a bit of a rundown on your history with reptiles?
Yeah, definitely. So I've always been obsessed with reptiles. I've probably said this too many times on podcasts, but my first word was apparently snakes. So yeah, I'll take my parents' word for it anyway. But yeah, so I've been obsessed with them since I could sort of figure out what they were, I think. And then yeah, grew up so I was born in Sydney, grew up down in Tassie though from about 3 years old. And we lived on 45 acres of bush down there. So lived on this pristine property. Just pristine wilderness. It was mostly just bush. It was so good. And yeah, so I grew up around wildlife. There was snakes and the three species of snake that you get down there on the property, and the big blue tongues and mountain dragons and all that kind of stuff. And so I was pretty obsessed with all the wildlife we'd get around there from an early age. And then my parents got into wildlife caring when I was pretty young as well. I don't know how old I was at that point, but it must have been around six to 8 years old, I'd say. We had all kinds of domestic animals as well, like your cows and horses and all that. But the legislation down there for keeping reptiles was that you just catch them, and that's legal. You put them on your permit, you catch them from the wild. That's the only way to do it down there. You can't actually buy and sell reptiles in Tassie, so you'd just be you get your permit and you go catch a blue tongue. Then the blue tongue would have 10 babies, and you'd release them all in your garden, which was awesome. So grew up sort of doing that, and then at 12 years old, it's all good, just turn it off. The fan's just chopping some plants here.
Oh, nice.
Hitting plants in the back patio. Yeah, so they started wildlife rescue, and so we were raising bandicoots and wallabies, like the Bennett's wallabies down there, and all kinds of different birds of prey and whatnot. And then started volunteering at a wildlife park down there called Bonnarong Wildlife Sanctuary when I was about 12 years old on the weekends. So that was the park that we sort of did this rescue course through. And then, so volunteering every chance I got out there, started doing an internship through them, doing Cert 2 in animal studies. And then I went up and did a 2-week work experience stint up at the reptile park for this same sort of internship I was doing, which was awesome. As you know, a lot of parks don't really let you do a whole lot as a volunteer, but the reptile park's very well known for letting volunteers do a whole lot. So, it was awesome to be able to do so much with all these reptiles at such an early stage in the career. I was stoked to do that. And then went up to Australia Zoo to volunteer. So I was 15 at that point. It was the earliest age you could volunteer at that point. So I did a couple of weeks volunteer work there, because volunteering at Australia Zoo is treated like a job. You have to do this whole big application. You get video interviewed like this, or I flew up for an interview, and it was a full-blown job application, and I got got the job, so I got to volunteer, got the privilege of volunteering at Australia Zoo, and then obviously it's pretty hands off on the volunteer side of it at Australia Zoo. So I was just got very used to doing the hands off wildlife side of things, which is good for I think everyone to experience in the early stage of their career, that it's not all handling animals. It's all about picking up the poo and doing the stuff off display is the majority of the work, and then the highlights is when you actually get to interact with the animal. So I learned that at a pretty early stage in the career, and then I was still living down at Tassie, but convinced my parents to move up. So we moved up here when I was just turning 16. It was years of hassling them, because 3 snakes. When you're a reptile enthusiast down in Tassie, just doesn't seem to cut it when you're a kid. You're just
Yeah.
like, nah, this isn't good long term. I'm going to need more reptiles. And my favorite reptile is crocs. So, yeah, I was like, oh, I've got to move up to the sunny coast. Like, I want to work at Australia Zoo one day and all that kind of stuff. And so they finally did it. We moved up to Bly, and then was kept volunteering at Australia Zoo for about a year. And I was getting all these job offers along the way, but I was still 16 years old, and they'd only hire people once they had their driver's license. So I was just like, they thought I think I've always looked way older than I am. Probably even right now, I probably look like I'm 40 something. But they used to go, "Oh, you're on a job," and I was like, "Oh no, I'm 16," and they're like, "Oh, crap." And so I was getting job offers like driving the shuttles and stuff like that. And anyway, I got my driver's license as soon as I turned 17, and then got a job like basically that week and straight into koalas. So again, anybody that's looking to get into the industry, you just got to take what you can get at that point. You know, you might go, no, I'm into my reptiles. I don't want to work with koalas, but you're not going to get a job if you do that. You know, you want to just take what you can get and then work your way up to where you want to be from there. So took that opportunity, started in koalas, volunteered again, like every chance I got in reptiles still on the side. So like any days I had off or weekends, I'd be volunteering in reptiles. Even after shifts, I'd be volunteering in reptiles and becoming mates with all the team over there and stuff. And then started doing, I did 6 months in the rescue department. So that was cool working with Toby, who was the head of crocs, or sort of like the curator of crocodiles there and runs the croc trip and everything like that. So it was great to have a bit of mentorship from him and spend some time with him. So, and then there was, at the time, few people might remember this, but they had a really bad manager at Australia Zoo at the time. Bit of a common trend with Australia Zoo. But at the time, this guy actually ended up getting done for bloody sexual assault and harassment and all this kind of stuff. And it was all over the news. But he had it out for me and didn't like me. And I heard this all after from the guys that had anything to say with me getting a job in reptiles. I was like, yeah, no, he just didn't like you. So you weren't going to get a job while he was around. And then he quit. Oh, no, he got fired, sorry, over that whole thing. And Toby's like, yeah, now's your chance, mate. Go across to reptiles. Because until then, I was just going to stick with rescue because I was going to get more opportunities over there with reptiles than I was just trying to bust my ass to get into reptiles and get put, off display somewhere, not doing anything. Because a lot of people would get put in that department and just put in the in-betweens croc enclosures, so you wouldn't actually get to work with the crocs. You just work mowing the strips of grass in between the fences or work with the pumps and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
my best mate pretty much did that for an entire year. He got into reptiles a year before me, but we ended up being on the exact same level because he was just taking care of pumps and in-betweens up until then. So anyway, yeah, he left and I got into reptiles at 18. And then, yeah, it was a really good time to get into reptiles. Like Australia Zoo is pretty well known for being a really slow sort of training process to get to work with the crocs and work with the venomous snakes and stuff like that. But I came in at such a good time because that bloke had just left, and that bloke had forced a whole lot of other people to leave before he left because he was just that hard to work for. That all these people had left leading up to this. So they were really like desperate for people to be trained on everything. So me and my mate Nero just got smashed with the training. So it was like perfect timing. So 18 years old, was feeding saltwater crocodiles. After going through the ranks, so you start obviously working with like the small alligators and the freshies, and then you work your way up to the smaller salties that are in like at the time we had clear water ponds that weren't in the Crocosteum. There still is the triples crocs and scrapper was the first one that I actually fed, and then work your way up from there to some of the Crocosteum crocs. So you're sort of starting with like your 12, 13 foot male saltwater crocodiles, and then you're working your way up to like the 14, 15, 16 foot salties, and then like the dirty water ponds where you can't obviously see where the croc is and stuff adds a whole other element as well. And so I managed to smash through that training nice and quickly, and was feeding crocs in the Crocoseum by 20, and then feeding all the salties there. Like I had just over 30 saltwater crocodiles there, and then over 100 alligators, and probably 15 freshies at the time. And was doing all of that by sort of, I'd say 23, and working with all the venomous snakes. So, which was a pretty like fast career in reptiles. So I got really lucky. Like we got And I was so grateful for it after seeing how many people like tried over the years. Like a majority of my mates that I worked with in koalas were trying to get into reptiles. A lot of people just start at the zoo and get into koalas, and then they just get shut down and they just get kept in that department and then they just leave. So like your average career at Australia Zoo is about 2 years and people don't get anywhere near where they want to go. And I just got really lucky in that sense that the timing worked out really well. And I guess that sort of mentality to just do whatever it takes, like when I was volunteering in reptiles, I'd be like, oh, do you want me to go pick up the rubbish underneath the grandstands or scrub the bird poo on the path? Like I didn't care, whatever it took to sort of prove that I was keen enough. And that sort of got me there. But yeah, that's sort of my career. And then left Australia Zoo, started Wildlife Unleashed on the side. And yeah, so that was like towards like the last year of my time at Australia Zoo. We'd started getting the permits for Wildlife Unleashed, which is the company that we run now, and then left Australia Zoo after putting a mower in the alligator lagoon, and and then and then and then went koala tracking. So Brino, who used to be pretty high up at Australia Zoo, like Steve's right hand man, hit me up and was like, "Hey mate, like how's things going at Australia Zoo?" And I sort of filled him in. He's like, "Oh, would you like a job working alongside me, working with koalas?" And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be awesome." And so he got me an interview for that. So then I went to do koala tracking. So I left Australia Zoo, was koala tracking and doing Wildlife Unleashed, and then got enough work doing Wildlife Unleashed that, yeah, dialed back the hours on that. Now we've been running Wildlife Unleashed. It's been going for 5 years now. I've been doing this full time for about the last 2 years, and we've got 5 staff on board now, and it's yeah, it's going good. So yeah.
Holy shit, Mick. Buddy, there's a fair bit to unpack there, but first and foremost, how did the mower go in the water?
Yeah, that was a cracker. It was so it was unintentional, but also I think it was just the yeah, it was the place I was at in my career there. You know how when you've sort of been somewhere for a while, or you might be on your way out and you sort of get a bit more complacent than you would normally if you really sort of valued your job. I wouldn't probably have been mowing where I was mowing, but I was pushing the boundaries a bit. It was this alligator lagoon down the back of the zoo off display enclosure, but tour groups come past it. And we had 50 plus alligators in there at the time, and some of them are 12 foot now, were at the time 12 foot. So there were some big units in there, everything from about 2 meters, probably 1.8 meters up to, like 12 foot, whatever that is, three something meters, 3 and a bit.
Yeah.
And they were units. And we used to go on an average day when we'd go mowing down there, we'd take one front deck, big ride-on mower that would mow the big flat sections. And then we'd have 2 to 3 blokes on whippersnippers doing the banks that are pretty steep around the pond and to smash it out. But we were pushed for time, and this enclosure hadn't been mowed for a week or so now because I can't remember why, but we were a bit down in staff at the time. So we were just like, oh, let's just go smash out the alligator lagoon. We'll just mow what we can on ride-on mowers. So me and my mate Aiden went down and we both jumped on ride-ons, and Aiden grabbed the usual one, this beaten up old John Deere front deck mower. And I grabbed the brand spanking new Hustler,
oh, no.
Hustler zero turn with a bloody catcher on the back. And the fleet manager is right there when I'm grabbing it. He's like, mate, don't you bust that catcher on the back. And I'm like, oh, she'll be right, mate. It's all good. And he's like, righto, here's the keys. We drove off on them, just burning down. Like you drive straight through the zoo road, that main road, all the way down to the back. And then we just let ourselves in the enclosure and we're mowing, we're smashing it out. We're like, yeah, this is sick. Smashing it out so quick. And then I was like, oh, I'll just push it down the bank a little bit since we don't have the whippersnippers here. And so I did the top section of it. I was like, oh, yeah, it was all right. Traction was fine. And then came back along, no worries. And then I was like, oh, I'll try and push just down underneath the tree there. And it was like right next to the water. And I went across and I was like, yeah, that's fine. No dramas there. And then I missed a spot though. So I was like, I'm going to go back through, come back through. I should have cut my losses, but gone back through, and those zero turns, like they've just got the 2 driving wheels, and as soon as one loses traction, it's just like
it's all over.
Yeah. So I just started sliding like I was on ice, and I was just like straight into the drink,
then
and my feet, like I was instantly like up to my waist in water, like the whole deck's underwater. You should have seen the alligator's eyes light up. They're like, yeah, I got him. And they're like, would have had like at least 20 alligators coming right there. And I just like jumped up onto the seat, grabbed the roll bar, hopped around the roll bar onto the engine at the back, and then had to jump from that point. It was like that far in the drink by now. I had to jump about a meter to land. So
Oh my
I just
God.
jumped across the land, and my mate's coming burning over on the other ride on, and he's just like, and I just like walked over to him and just like leaned up on his mower and we're just looking back at the water. And I was like, well, fuck. And we just both bloody laughed for a minute and we're like, oh shit. And then this mower, like I was sort of thinking at that point, I don't think I was too worried at that point. I was like, oh, we'll be able to hook it up with a strap and pull it back out. But we're just standing there watching this thing and it's like, just keeps going. And till the point where there's literally just bubbles coming up and you can't even see the mower.
No.
And so I've just quickly grabbed a stick and like marked where it went in. And then it's like completely gone. You can't even see it at all. And at that time, the tour buggy comes around with about 20 people on the back of this buggy, comes up past the enclosure, and they're just like, they're stopped looking at the enclosure, and we're just there leaning against this mower going, I'm like, they don't even know there's a mower on the bottom of the pond right now. We're just
Nothing
like,
to see here, folks.
Yeah. And then, that was, it was chaos. And then, I had to call my boss and be like, oh, bad news, mate. Sunk a mower.
Sunk a mower.
Yeah. He's like, what?
Which one?
What mower? And I'm like, oh, he's like, just a push mower. I'm like, nah, like brand new hustler. And he's like, oh, no.
Oh, no.
And he's like, they're going to the Crocker CM show at the time. So that's another reason why we didn't have more people down there. It was like midday. So most of the team was at the show.
Everyone's busy.
And he's like, I can't deal with this right now. Call Stewie, which was another like manager there who'd been around since Steve's day, and called him up and he's like, oh, fuck, righto. Comes down, and then the general manager comes down, Luke Reevely, who's the Irwin's PA, and the fleet manager and everybody. And they're like just all furious. And I was like, oh, what can you do?
What can you do?
Yeah. But I mean, to be honest, the thing that happened next was probably the most sketchy. Was trying to recover this thing.
Retrieve it,
yeah. And it went about the wrong way. That's one of the big things with Australia Zoo is there's so much fear in the management team there as well. Like they don't want to go to their superiors. Like for some reason over the years, like it's just been ingrained in them. Like they don't want to go to their superiors and tell them what's happening. And so they try and just smash things out the dodgy way. And a bloke nearly could have got killed that day trying to recover that thing. Like it was pretty horrific. Yeah, like anchor went flying on a climbing rope and shit like that. Like we're trying to just reef this thing out through the fences with a troopy and some rope and whatnot. And we had like a tinny in there trying to hook this thing. And it was just sketchy as. And then anyway, after that, like I got called in to have a meeting with HR. I think it was the following day. And they're like, the first thing they say to me is like, so you're going to be getting a written warning.
Yeah, fair enough. Copy.
Yeah. Well, I was past that point, mate. In my career, I was like, nah, I don't think I am, because what did I do wrong in the SOPs? And they're like, well, you sunk a mower. It's like, well, it doesn't say anything about not sinking a mower. It also doesn't say anything about where we can and can't go on the mowers. So I don't know what you're going to give me a written warning over. And anyway, they didn't like that. And things went south from there. But
I can't see why they would like that.
My career ended pretty swiftly after that. And I was like that ready, which is why I was sort of the way I was at that point in my career. Like we were I'd already dropped down to part-time at that point, which they didn't like either. So I was full-time for years. And then I asked to go to 3 days part-time, which was the first, like they never do that. I had to have like a meeting with all the higher ups to be like, I want to go part-time, or otherwise I'm basically going to have to leave pretty soon because I've got that much going on outside of work. And they made it happen. So that was good. And that made me stick around for about another year part-time. And Adele ended up doing the same, which was good. And that allowed us to sort of do a lot more on our business at home. And this was all after COVID and everything as well. So we were flat out building this business through COVID. And all these people are like, obviously so grateful to have had work through that time. But all these people are complaining to us going, oh, I'm stuck at home. I've got nothing to do. And I'm like, and of course, we're the ones that are still out of the 450 something staff that worked at Australia Zoo at the time. They kept on about, 50 people throughout the whole zoo.
Wow.
And so only a select couple of people were working. Like I was working in reptiles. They kept a lot of the reptile crew on because obviously nobody else is going to be doing the crocs and the venomous snakes and stuff. But then we had to do the koalas and the exotics department, like doing the binturongs and the otters and stuff like that. So just all these reptile crew just run around the zoo in buggies, just getting smashed by all these different animals. Like my mate got chewed on by otters through COVID, and I got
Oh,
chewed on
no
by a
thanks.
wombat because I
Oh,
just got smashed by a wombat on the back of the leg because we're all just running around like they're just like, yeah, just put the wombats away. Like, no worries. And then we're just getting chased by these wombats. It's gold. It's good times.
I
But
think we. I was going to say, you see those videos of those like wombats getting the zoomies. Like, I've not really worked much with wombats at all, but they look cute. You see people holding them and they're chasing them and
yeah.
blah, whatever. But they're little tanks from what I can gather. They'll chase you down and chew the shit out of you.
Oh yeah, they're absolute bulldozers, hey, and they're so fast. They run up like over 40 k's an hour. And I got to do a bit of work with them at down at Tassie at that wildlife park. We used to raise them, and a lot of parks do this. But that park used to raise them up until 2 years old, and they're sort of reaching the males are reaching that sexual maturity, and then they just go absolutely rogue. And you see it like it's just like it's good fun, but it's just hectic to work with them because you just jump in there and you just know they're going to be coming at you, and you just like these wombats. They jump up at you as well, like they like lunge at you, and they'll get you like up as high as your quad. They'll smash you up that high. Like I know a few keepers that have had gnarly bites. Like even down there, actually, there was this bloke who had this big gnarly skin graft on his calf. And I was like thinking this whole time, looking at it, I'm like, oh, he must have got smashed by a Tassie devil or something. And I like eventually asked him, and he's like, no, wombat. Wombat smashed him on the calf, and he's got like big, like probably 100 mil by 100 mil skin graft on the back of his leg from getting smashed by a wombat. Like they're gnarly.
I think I'll stick with venomous snakes. To be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah, 100%.
I do want to also touch on, mate, you must have the world's most supportive parents. You managed to convince them to move from their home to Tassie as a young fella
Yeah.
to try to get a gig at Oz Zoo. That's unreal.
Yeah, absolutely. They're definitely super supportive parents, but I think it was also probably the start of my animal training career. Like it's like you put the pressure on and you don't take the pressure off until you get what you want, you know? So I just
Yeah.
I'd put the pressure on so much they were probably that fed up from hearing from me. They're like, we're gonna have to move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just
they
gave in eventually.
Yeah, that's it. They were gold. Yeah, I'm so lucky that they did that for me because it did speed up like my career tenfold. They were so supportive through all of that, and even like I dropped out of school or I finished school after year 10. So I'd finished year 10 down in Tassie, and I was meant to be moving up, and I did 2 weeks at Nambour High School, and I was just over it. Like I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And so school just felt like a waste of time to me, like when I could be, and then I'm going to volunteer on my days off to get towards what I actually want to do. And it's like, well, I could just stop school and just do that full time, and it's going to, sort of speed up
Get
my
you there
chances
sooner.
of getting, yeah. And it did. Like I was working like at Australia Zoo when I was 17 years old, which I would have still been at high school. And so there's two different paths that people can choose, and I've got a lot of mates that chose the academic path, obviously, that went through high school and then did uni. And then by the time they got a job at Australia Zoo, I'm like, a couple of years younger than them, and I'm already, we're already sinking mowers and working with the venomous snakes and the crocs. Yeah, so, and I'm stoked with that path that I took. Like, I think, and my dad was the same, I think, where he wasn't too much of an academic when he was younger, but later on in his life, his head sort of changed a bit and was able to learn a bit more in that way. I think I'm probably going to get that way as well, but yeah, I've definitely always been more of a hands-on sort of learner.
Yeah, for sure. You've kind of answered it already, but I guess like the Crocoseum shows, they're like the very final boss in terms of croc training. So you do everything. I guess how do you prove yourself to getting up to doing the Crocoseum shows? And then I do want to talk a little bit about like I've seen a Crocoseum show. I think I've actually seen you do a Crocoseum show.
Yeah.
There is so much involved in orchestrating a show. I guess can you just talk firstly about what it takes to get there, and then what it takes to actually do one of those shows?
Yeah, definitely. Well, so the Crocoseum shows actually ended up being sort of midway through your sort of as far as the saltwater crocodile part of the training. So the Crocoseum actually ends up being about midway through for certain crocs because there's 7 crocodiles out the back of the Crocoseum, one for every day of the week. And there's anything from like a 12-foot croc, like Scrapper ended up getting moved in there, Bluey ended up getting moved in there. They were about 12-foot crocs. And then we ended up having like Weeper and Big Owl and stuff like that. They were like 14-foot to 15-foot crocodiles, big units. And so you'd still, yeah, which almost felt more daunting because you're like pretty early on in your sort of presenting career almost. Like we did tortoise demos at Australia Zoo, which was great experience for, starting your presenting career. I was doing the presentations down at Bonnarong as well, doing like wombats and koalas and Tassie devils. So I'd sort of had a bit of experience with it. So, but I know for a lot of people that are just starting straight into that, and then all of a sudden you're like, you fed like maybe 1 or 2 crocs out of the Crocoseum, and now you have to do a Crocoseum croc, and it's like 5,000 people stadium. And so I guess the way they'd sort of break that up to make it more achievable, like when you're first starting, is you're feeding the croc without talking. So when you're first doing a crocodile, they'll normally just have like the trainer talking, or somebody else feeding the crocs that talking, because it's a 2-person demo, those Crocoseum shows. So you just do like 2 hits and the other person would do 2 hits. And so the other person would talk for you, or you just have a presenter in there talking for you. And so you could focus on what you're doing. And so that sort of took that element away from it. And then once you were feeling comfortable feeding that croc, then you'd start talking. So that's one way they'd sort of break it down. But yeah, as far as like working through the ranks goes, it was like definitely they want to see how safe you can be. So that's a big part of it. Like obviously a lot of people that are keen to work with reptiles, they're pretty, a bit gung ho with reptiles, and they're pretty keen, like they're like myself as well included. Like if you got put in that in that enclosure with no rules and nobody telling you, oh, you can't get that close, you'd be pushing the boundaries a lot, and you'd probably have a whole lot of bloody close calls as well. But yeah, so you've got to sort of bear in mind in those facilities that they want to, and now as well as a business owner, I'm seeing things so differently, like my mentality back then, I was like, well, why can't I get that close? Or why can't I do this? And it's like, now I'm like looking at it, like I'm at the moment looking at training up a bloke doing the venomous snakes with our facility. And it's like, it's scary as a business owner training somebody else to do such a dangerous job, and seeing like the mentality of that sort of age person, around the 20, 22-year-old. It's like, they're so keen, but it's like, you don't understand how much can go wrong here and all that side of it. And so, yeah, they want to see that your head's screwed on right. You're doing all the things that they've trained you to, like and they were so good at that at Australia Zoo. Like at the time, again, I think I felt like it was way too strict. Like it was a bit of, when I was getting trained anyway, it's very different now, but it's also showing how different it is now in the sort of caliber of croc handlers, like how sort of blasé, and how many mistakes, even towards the end of my career, how many close calls were happening when a few of these higher ups were gone. So there was very old school mentality when I started. Like if you, so for instance, like in the Crocoseum shows, so you get trained on doing the in-between enclosure. So they've got to back up in between the fences. So you're like second line of backup. So you got some first backups in the enclosure with the feeder. Something goes wrong, that bloke's grabbing that person and or jumping on the croc, whatever they need to do to get them to let go. The person in betweens is making like the radio call to get more help coming in, and then they're jumping in to help out. And then there was also an up top in the Crocoseum, which would be like above the canal to like spot the crocodile when you're coming in and out of the canal, really high up, like so you can look down, because the glare was so bad in the Crocoseum sometimes. So there was all these different positions that you're doing, getting trained on before you're even in the enclosures as well. And then I once was in between the fences on an Irwin demo with Wes at the time as well. And I was moving, so the croc, and also there's so much you got to think about, because obviously if the croc comes over to you, you don't want to get the croc's attention on you in between the fences. If you have a croc hit the fence at an in-betweens person, it's a big no-no. And obviously, like when the Irwins are there and Wes is there, like you get your head torn off. And so this croc was like coming towards me. And so I started backing up towards like further away from the crocodile down towards the tail walk ramp. And as I was doing that, so I was walking backwards, the eyes have to stay on the crocodile at all times. And my eyes are like staying on the croc. And I like glanced down like that for 1 second to see where my foot was going, so I didn't trip over. It was like literally like that. Wes picked up on it mid demo, and he's like blocked his microphone off, and he goes, "You don't fucking move." And I was just like, what have I done wrong? Like I thought I was doing everything perfect, and he's just like raging at me mid demo, and I was like, righto. So I sort of second guessing everything I was doing from that point on, and then came in. So you lock up the Crocoseum after the croc's back away, come back into the Love Canal, where there was like Wes, Terry, Bindi, Robert, general manager, all the reptile team all standing around in like 20-person circle right there.
No, where this is going.
And I come in, and he's like, "You, what the fuck did you do wrong?" I'm like, I moved. And he's like, no, you took your fucking eyes off the crocodile. And he's just like raging at me. And he just like spraying me, like literally just spit flying. And everybody's just standing around like that. And even like the birds department on the other side of the Crocoseum, like, were coming up to me throughout the day. The girls are going, you all good? I heard Wes like tearing you a new one. And I was like, yeah, all good. And
Yeah.
just absolutely like made an example out of me. And just went to town over something what I thought was fairly minor at the time. But in hindsight now and later on in my career, I sort of saw why they were the way they were. And this is exactly how Steve and how Bob and everybody was there as well. They'd just absolutely blow their top off at people. And I learned like later on, because I was training people, and I saw somebody have such a close call that this female croc struck out and landed through his legs. Like the eyeballs were on the other side of his legs. So if that croc swung, he would have been grabbed right on the ankle and
In trouble, yeah.
in a lot of trouble, yeah. And he luckily managed to bounce out of that situation. But it's that complacency that sort of comes with, because what I learnt was that like when you first start training with crocs, there's a bit of a natural sort of innate healthy respect that this is an animal that could kill you, that's keeping you safe. And then after, only doesn't take long for some blokes as well that so high in testosterone, you young fellas, and you're just like, oh, I got this on the best croc feeder ever. And then you start getting really complacent. But the thing that then keeps you safe from that point is knowing that if I get seen by a manager taking my eyes off a crocodile or being complacent or getting too close, I'm going to get absolutely torn a new one, and you're going to have all these things taken away from you. Like they took me off croc training for the rest of those school holidays. And so I'm just out off display cleaning blue tongue enclosures going, oh, and all these guys getting trained in the croc scene. But it obviously made such a big example to the team, and everybody was so switched on there in those days when we did have Wes and Kelsey and like all these older managers that would absolutely get up to you if they saw you doing the wrong thing. And as soon as those guys left, you just saw it. Like people were so complacent, and so it's definitely a big part of like workplace health and safety in the crocs side of things. Like I think there does need to be an element of that. But obviously these days that's becoming less and less that sort of old school, getting torn a new one kind of thing. Doesn't really happen as much.
Can't yell at people anymore.
Nah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
I think what you're saying, I think it is important. Like you start off with the healthy respect for the animal, and then once you get to know the animal a bit more, those boundaries become a bit blurrier or a bit further or a bit closer, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You kind of need to have that healthy respect for, your seniors and the authority as well. And sometimes, like naturally people don't tend to respect authority like quite often, but when you get made an example of like you were, that respect comes rushing back real quick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I definitely, sort of gained so much respect for those guys and that sort of way of training when I saw a few more close calls and saw the other side to it. And now also looking back as a business owner, I'm like, I can see where it has a place. So
totally. And it's not just like the consequences are so massive. Like not only is it, a potential injury to a person, maybe there's consequences for the croc after that, then there's massive consequences for the business. And being as high profile as Australia Zoo, 5,000 people watching, how many of them have got their phones out videoing? Where's that going to do for reputation and public image and all that sort of stuff? So I think that spray you copped sounds pretty warranted.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I'm grateful for it.
I just might not have been at the time, but
I want to thank him. Yeah. No, I was not at the time, I was like, afterwards I'm like, I should have said this to him. I should have said that. But I did exactly what I should have done in that situation. And that was say nothing and
shut the fuck up.
It.
Yeah.
And so it ended up paying off, like I still got exactly where I wanted to go. I didn't put a setback in my training career or anything like that. I think he really did just see it as an opportunity to sort of give everybody a bit of a, make an example out of a situation, So, because it was relatively like other people in the team would have looked at that and wouldn't have pulled me up on it because they wouldn't have thought it was anything. So now they're like, oh, crap, we really got to keep our eyes on the crocodile.
Yeah. It's funny how you can totally view this as such a positive and constructive thing for not only you, but the whole team as well.
Yeah.
Whereas,
definitely.
If the wrong person gets yelled at, it's a fucking HR drama. You're going to court. Potentially you're abusive, and you stood down because you're and it just could go to shit. But I guess
Yeah.
it's all about perception and respect and whatnot. But
Yeah.
um,
Definitely.
I don't know how much of that's happening in 2026 anymore.
No.
Um, but
Yeah.
that's all right. I do want to talk too about how sort of were the presentations? Like, were you given much of a script, or were you freestyling a bit? Did you have much freedom? How did that go?
Yeah, so you actually do have a fair bit of freedom there. So there was the two types of demonstration, which is another thing that's really sad to see that Australia Zoo doesn't actually do these anymore. But they do. They used to do the 12 o'clock show and then the 2:30 show, and the 12 o'clock was the Crocodile show, and then the 2:30 was one of what we called the environmental park shows, which was all the dirty water ponds, all those triple crocs. And it was great opportunity, especially if you were doing a dirty water show. And that show out of the Crocodile was a lot more unscripted. So Crocodile, because it's getting tied into a whole presentation with birds and a snake skit, and sometimes we had dingoes or Komodo dragons or stuff like that in there as well. So there was a bit of other stuff going on that you had to keep the timing pretty strict in the Crocodile. So that was way more scripted, but there was still room for you to, like, we'd throw a fair bit of banter in there and just have a bit of fun between us. And it also the timing all depends on what the croc's doing as well. So if the croc's not behaving, you're having to talk longer because you're trying to get it to do something. And then you get to talk a whole lot longer, and you've got to be ready for that as well. Like, I think a lot of people when they're starting, that's what they're petrified of, is having to talk that bit longer in the Crocodile setting, because you're like, oh, got to go off script now. What do I say? Or stuff like that. But yeah, the 2:30 demonstration was 30 to 40 minutes of whatever you want. Like, you do when you start, they give you like a basic script, and you could rattle that off word for word, but they're like, here's an example of what a 2:30 demo looks like. You've watched so many already by this point as well. And they're like, just make your own, do whatever you want. So that's what you do. And it just had that basic structure of, introduction, introducing the animal, talking about the crocodile, building it up, doing a few feeds, talking about these behaviors, talking about croc safety, wrapping up, and then doing like a question time as well, which was really good. So you do question time after those 2:30 shows, which was great because you could answer so many of people's questions that they have, which you don't get to do in the Crocodile. But yeah,
Yeah.
they've stopped doing those now, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a bummer. I feel like those sorts of opportunities really, afford keepers to be able to develop their own sort of style in their
Yeah.
presentations.
100%.
You listen. We've all heard reptile or wildlife, or sometimes even in my case, aquarium presentations where they're scripted, and it's like, oh man, how boring is this? Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
you
definitely.
can if you know half of something, you can predict the next sentence. But when
Yeah.
people are freestyling and throwing banter, and it's so much more engaging, and it's just
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it is effectively it's science communication. So it's so much more
Exactly.
efficient and worthwhile if
Yeah.
people are having fun with it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And another thing, like, we got really lucky at the time, with our career at Australia Zoo. Both me and Adele were there at the same time as Olivia Dean was the head. Well, she was like the face of the zoo at the time, and she was like head of entertainment, and she'd come and like sort of watch your shows and train people up to do presentations, like especially the Crocodile stuff and all that, and the tortoise demo. And she's got like a uni degree in communication.
Oh
So
yeah, awesome.
she was great to work with, and gave us all so many pointers, and it made it was a really noticeably good entertainment crew and people that were doing the shows, and like the message was getting across really well. And then when she left, yeah, that sort of went downhill a lot as well. And there's a lot of people as well in the in the industry, sorry, like even our HOD, they I sort of have this mentality, like they I don't know if it's just they don't want to come across like they like doing presentations, because they sort of see it as like a peacock kind of thing. Like, oh, you just wanted to show off or be a rooster. Like, oh, I'm not really phased about that side of it. I'm not really phased about the big crocs or the venomous snakes. Like, they sort of act like that's all, oh, you're sort of a show off. They want to work with the little skinks and the frogs and stuff like that, when it's like, no, you're passionate about your skinks and frogs, but I'm passionate about saltwater crocodiles and venomous snakes. Like, it's no different. And it's
Yeah.
obviously so important it's what Australia Zoo is based off, is, conservation through education. And if you're not doing that, then you're doing something very wrong. Like, they're not doing a whole lot else for conservation other than the rescue side of things and the wildlife rehabilitation. Like, that's what zoos are so important for, is the
Yeah.
communication. So it's essential. And so, yeah, so it was really good to sort of have that mentorship. And we actually even have had Olivia come and do a talk to our staff here. We had a meeting here. She come and did like an hour workshop with everyone, which was great for me and Adele as well, and everyone, and did like a quick workshop on public speaking, which was great. So yeah, it's what our business is based off as well, obviously. And you see the difference it makes. Like when we're going to do school talks and even kids parties, like I think a lot of people would think, oh, wildlife at a kids party doesn't sound right. And what are you doing? Just like being entertainment. It's like, and that's literally the start to our shows. Like this isn't just about entertainment. It's about conservation. And we're here to teach you guys about our wildlife, but we're going to make it fun along the way. And the kids, like every single one of those kids is obsessed with the animals by the end of it. They've all had this chance to hold a snake. You see their faces when they hold a snake for the first time. And you know that that kid's not going to grow up hating wildlife, and they're going to grow up thinking about wildlife and remembering it. They're not going to be one of those kids or one of those people that grow up so removed from nature, which is so easy to happen these days because everywhere you look, like in a suburban area, there's not one native plant left. Or you grow up in Brisbane and there's just, there's not a patch of bush left. So
No plants at
so
all.
easy for people. Yeah, so easy for people to grow up these days and not even know what the hell a lace monitor is or what is it, like they just don't see it. So I think it's so important. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I do want to talk about your business as well. So can you give us a bit of a chat about that?
Yeah, definitely. So, I guess like we came up with the concept. Both me and Adele were always really keen to work for ourselves. It was kind of like our end goal all along was to, I guess, have our own wildlife park. And so this was sort of a stepping stone to more of a bigger plan that we've got in place. And we both figured, oh, like let's do mobile wildlife. And so we started, like we had this property and we'd already had a few pets that were keeping our hands full on the side of being a zookeeper. Like we had big 13-foot olive pythons. We had these lace monitors. We had a red-tailed black cockatoo, all these animals that we just wanted to have because we were just so passionate about wildlife. They were just our pets on the side, like a lot of people do in the industry. But we were like, oh, we could actually make a living out of using these guys. So we looked into getting the permits. We got the permits for it, and we built, Wildlife Unleashed, and it's going really well. Like the next couple of weeks is hectic. We're doing a lot more agricultural shows and expos now as well, which is what we normally take the venomous snakes to. So we take one or two venomous snakes and we take a free flight bird or two. We'll take like a bird of prey, like an owl, and we'll take a red-tailed black cockatoo or a major Mitchell cockatoo or a macaw or whatever. And then we'll take a couple of pythons, we'll take a saltwater crocodile, we'll take some lizards like a bearded dragon and a bluey. And and then we go do these shows, and we do about 3 shows in a day when we do these big expos, and then we do like wildlife interactions in between the shows. So people can either come over and pay to hold an animal to take a photo, or they can just come and pat the animals and chat to us and learn about them. And we sell the snake bite kits and the bandages and stubby coolers. And Adele's just come up with some cool merch mostly for kids with these awesome, environmental messages on them, like habitat rocks. And it has like a bearded dragon with his fingers up like this, like that kind of stuff, to sort of try and get that sort of messaging out there from a young age. And so it's been really cool. And we've got some amazing staff on board now as well, quite a few of which are also ex-Australia Zoo, and amazing presenters, which again is like such an essential part of what we do. So we're one of our staff, Rosie, is absolutely smashing it. So she she pretty much runs the joint here, which is great. And it's
Awesome.
allowing us to sort of start to think about the next stages, which is what we're keen to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's unreal. You mentioned earlier you've got 5 staff on, which is that's so hectic, man. I must congratulate you. I think what you two are doing, and doing well from what I can see, it's the dream for so many wildlife keepers. And I think for a lot of people it seems probably pretty unattainable. So it's really epic to see what you guys are doing. But would you say your bread and butter is pretty much like shows for kids groups and that sort of thing?
Definitely, yeah. Kids is a massive part of it. I think a lot of people think that it's only for kids. So we have to sort of really put emphasis on the fact that it's not just for kids a lot of the time. But a lot of the time it is. So yeah, schools, daycares are a big part of it, and kids parties. And then like we shouldn't say kids parties because it's just all parties. Like I've done a 40th, I've done a 60th, we've done weddings.
Oh, man.
you know, like we can literally bring wildlife to anything, and it's not just for kids. And a lot of the time, even the kids' parties end up being that the kids are so juiced up on sugar, you lose their attention after 20 minutes and they burn off and come back to hold an animal, and the parents are just there like glued to what you're saying. So we've sort of got to come up with shows that are both good for kids and for the parents, which is good. And
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, and then obviously doing a lot more expos and ag shows now as well, which are like those 2 to 3 day big shows. Like we've got the Kingaroy show this weekend, which is 2 hours away, and then I've got the furthest job away that I've ever done for Wildlife Unleashed yet. The following weekend is Blackall, which is like 10 hours and 50 minutes from here.
Jeepers.
And then I got the Gympie show the weekend after that. So a few big weekends ahead, and then then we go to Singapore and Borneo and Bali though.
Oh,
is good.
unreal. And that's just a getaway?
Yeah, just a quick trip away. We got mates that are going to England and they're stopping off at Singapore, and they're like, "You should come to Singapore." And we're like, "Oh, it's a terrible time. We've got expos on while we're away." And we're both kind of like, we should do it. We should just commit to it. So it forces us to actually have somebody ready to do the venomous snakes in time. So that's why we're training someone doing venomous snake stuff now. We're like, if we just lock it in, we got to have somebody trained up by then, which is in June. So we're into that now. And that sort of has been something that we've done a few times throughout building this business, is just throw ourselves in the deep end. You'll have somebody inquire about a job and be like, "Can you do this?" We're like, "Well, no, but yes." We'll make it happen. And then then you make it happen in time, and it sort of helps you speed up the growth a lot.
Yeah, that's like forced involuntary business growth.
Yeah,
Essentially.
exactly.
But
It's stressful.
I can only imagine the challenges in finding, like we sort of touched on this a bit earlier, but finding staff to do everything to the standards that you are, and that training is so important. But I guess one bonus is that because it's a wildlife obviously related business, that people have to work with the wildlife. When you want to go away, people can take care of your pets for you. Like
Yeah.
if you weren't running this business, you'd have to find someone, well, one that you probably weren't paying, but someone that you trust enough to come and take care of you. Quite a menagerie you've got by the sounds of it.
Oh yeah, 100%. And we have to keep like pinching ourselves now, because it's happened fairly quickly, but it felt like such a long time as well that we were doing it all by ourselves. Like the first few years, like we were juggling, doing a full-time job. We were snake catching on the side of that. Like we're both zookeepers, snake catchers, and then building Wildlife Unleashed. So it was pretty flat out. And then every time we'd try and go away, and we've always like also prioritized getting away. So it sort of hasn't really got in the way of us getting away. We've just sort of made it happen. And so we'd have like my dad come and stay here and train him up on doing things, and then he'd get smashed by the barn owl or something like that. And we're like, "Oh, we probably didn't train him right on doing that." Or and then we were lucky as well that we had so many zookeeper mates around that we could be like, "Oh, do you mind coming and staying here for a few days?" And they'd be all over it. And then now to the point where where we've got staff on and we can go away. Like we were just away for a couple of nights then, and we just get them to, like, they feed our dogs, they put them inside at night, and then they're back in first thing in the morning the next day. And so it's great. And it's good. It's really good.
Speaking of snake catching, you've done some pretty hectic snake catching over the last couple of years, eh?
Yeah. It's been, like obviously I started as a snake catcher pretty much as soon as I moved up here. I was trying to get into the snake catching side of it. So I did a venomous snake handling course when I was, 16. And then I actually got my damage mitigation permit when I was 16 as well. I think that's changed now. I don't think you can actually do that. But I remember going to my first snake call out and my dad had to drive me. Couple of snake call outs. So he's like, "Dad, I got a snake call out down the road. Can you drive me?" And he's like, "Yep, no worries." And then met Stu. So I knew Stu already, who's the owner of Sunshine Coast Snake Catchers. We were working in reptiles together. So I was volunteering at the time when I first started, and knew Stu because I'd volunteer with him in the reptiles department, and then eventually was working with him in reptiles as well. But he had just bought, or he'd started his own business, and then not long after he ended up buying out that other big snake catching company that was on the coast. And so I've always sort of caught for Stu pretty much, and or Richard Gilbert, who was the owner of it before him. And then got lucky to be around at the time when he was trying to get a show off the ground for for any channel at the time, but National Geographic picked it up. And so he initially was wanting to just it was going to be a show mostly just with him, but they were kind of like, "Oh, it'd be good to have a few different characters in there to just sort of break the mold of a lot of other documentaries." and just throw a bit more, a few different characters in there. And they were super
Yeah.
keen to get some girls on the team as well. So they were like, oh, do you want to send in like a 2-minute audition video of just talking about yourself? And then, so I got the opportunity. They're like, yeah, we want you on the team, but does your wife catch snakes? And I'm like, well, yes, but no. Like, she's not a snake catcher. She's sort of handled snakes around here, and she's sort of like come out herping heaps, obviously, and sort of handles the non-venomous stuff. But she's like, oh, could she audition as well? And so we did an audition video together. And we did this mock-up skit where she like comes in through the gate, and I'm the person calling the snake catcher out, and I've like got my sunnies on like this and my flanny shirt, and I'm like, oi, come in quick, there's a 10-meter brown snake down the back of the property. And she comes in, and then we go catch this breadlie python, one of our pet pythons, down the back.
Nice.
So they loved it, and they're like, yeah, let's get her on board. And then we ended up having 6 of us on the show. So Stewie, Chris, me, and Adele, Jess, and Olivia. So 3 girls, 3 boys, 3 teams. So we'd all be, 2-person teams. And it was awesome. Like, it's still going, believe it or not. Like, we're actually filming season 6 this year,
Holy shit.
later on this year, which is pretty crazy considering the way it sort of all panned out. Like, we did the first season we filmed while we were still at Australia Zoo, which kind of got in the way of us having a few opportunities at Australia Zoo as well, because they were filming Crikey, It's the Irwins at the time. And so we were doing some croc moves and stuff like that. And then once they caught wind of me being on Nat Geo, they were like, oh, you can't be on Animal Planet. So I'd be like standing in the background when they're moving these crocs, and I'll be like, oh, bugger. But again, I was like towards the end of my career there, so I wasn't too phased. But same with Adele as far as like bird things as well, which was a bit annoying. But and then we did the first 2 seasons, and then that went really well. It aired on Nat Geo and aired on Channel 9. And we were starting to get a bit of traction from it as well. Like, we were starting to notice the difference in traffic, even with our business from it. We even had people book us like from Noosa, like probably 2 hours drive from here. They were like, oh, can we have you guys come out for our kids' party? But we want both of you there. And we're like, oh, yeah, but it's going to cost you.
It's going to cost you.
That's stopping us from doing another job. Yeah. And they're like, no worries. And they end up paying like double the price of what we charge for having us both there, which was cool. And we did that a couple of times. Even ones where we went to like a kid's party, and we get there and the kids are like dressed up in the same snake catcher uniform. And there's this kid driving his little toy truck around, and he's going, Adele, get in the back. and he's got like his pillowcase snake bag, and he's like, all right, I'm going to be Mick, you be Adele. And so I had to act as Adele when he's being Mick, and we're like catching a rubber snake in the garden. So that was really cool, and it was awesome to see like the kind of impact that it's having. And and then Nat Geo sold out to Disney, and it all kind of didn't go anywhere for a bit. But Disney was like, Nat Geo was like, we've still got a bit of funding. Smashed out season 3, so we smashed out season 3, and we did. Me and Adele flew up to Cairns to catch, and we also flew down to Adelaide and caught in the Barossa Valley to try and get a bit of variety.
Yeah.
And who else? Oh, Chris and Jess went down to Sydney. So we were like 3 teams in 3 different areas in Australia. So it was kind of cool. We were like excited to see, maybe this could start going somewhere a bit further afield, and we'll start catching even further away. And then that hasn't been aired anywhere. And then Love Nature came along. Because of the whole, Disney buying Nat Geo, it just hasn't gone anywhere. And from what I've heard, like, there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes with docos, which I never realised. But now I sort of see why it takes so long for some docos to come to light. And a lot of channels only want to pick up a series once there's like multiple seasons of it. So it'll probably come a time where like a channel will pick up all 6 seasons and be like, and whack it up there, and I'll be 60 years old and who knows. But so Love Nature came along though, and they were like, we're keen to pick up the show, but then they don't have the rights to season 1, 2, or 3 because that's still owned by Nat Geo or Disney, and so they're just kicking off from season 4. So we filmed season 4, which then ended up being season 4 and 5, so a double season. And Adele's pregnant. Adele's pregnant for all of that. And they're airing 2 years apart, like, well, one in 1 year and then the following year. So she's going to be pregnant for a long time.
For a long time.
And then they're like, yeah, it's going really well because that's been airing over in like Europe, I think. And
Wow.
and then yeah, they're like, yeah, we're keen to go again. So they're like, yep, we're doing season 6. So yeah, so that'll be cool. And I think we might even have Wild Boy, our son, on this one, which would be cool.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah,
Man,
which will be a
must have
pretty
been
crazy jump. It'll go from her being pregnant to here's a bloody 2-year-old just about.
Yeah,
like he's
yeah.
one and a bit now. So
Yeah, well, nothing's real on documentaries anyway, is it?
no.
Well, actually, I'm curious how filming went. Were you just sort of sitting around with a crew waiting for a snake call?
Yeah, there's a lot of sitting around. It gets really boring sometimes. We drive each other crazy just sitting around.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more to it as well that people don't see as far as like filming, like how long filming takes as well. Like the most kind of jobs we could do in a day is 3 call outs to be able to
Oh,
film them.
yeah. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
to
for
film
sure.
them well. And even then we'll be having to do like interviews or like reenacting certain things after for them to, because they can't catch everything at one time. So we'll have like, initially we had like 1 or 2 cameras, and then we ended up having, I think, 3 cameras on the last seasons. Even then though, they can't catch every angle. So then you have to like go and reenact things just so that they can get a tight shot of your hook lifting something or like stuff like that, just to fill in all the pieces. And you'll be standing there like acting like you've got a snake by the tail, and they're like filming just like the camera is now, where you can't see what's in my hand. And I'm like looking at it like, just because they were filming the snake, not me at the time, and they want to get used re-saying something. So all of that's pretty repetitive and takes a bit of acting.
Yeah,
And then jumping in and out of cars and stuff. They're like, you rock up, you get out of the car, and then they're like, okay, now get back in and get back out.
Oh, it's I've only been involved with a very small amount of filming, but it's so impressive what the producers and the cameramen, they're just like, nah, that wasn't good, do this. Oh, we need this shot, we need that shot, and they just know. Well, obviously it's their profession, but they just know how to get the shots they need to put together the piece that they want. Like it's pretty impressive, and I'm sure for you being the subject, it's probably like you're saying, a bit repetitive and boring.
Yeah, no, it's very impressive, and we're so stoked with the teams that we get to work with. Like the camera guys are absolute legends. Like I always feel like they should be the ones in front of the camera as well, because they're like their life is so cool. Like you're just talking to them, and I'm just like in awe of what they're getting up to. Like they're filming all these different things around the world, and you're just like, and you're filming me.
Yeah, turn that
Give
camera
me the
around.
camera.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, no, they're legends, and they're so easy to work with as well. So we just do everything they say to make it as easy for them as possible as well, which I think they like. So just to, there's no point complaining about it. Those guys are up until like midnight downloading the footage that they've done, and then they're up early the next morning getting all the cameras ready. Like they're bloody hard workers. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
sounds
so
like
passionate about what they do.
Sounds like you got a bloody good thing going on there with Aussie Snake Wranglers.
Yeah. Oh, it's great fun. And again, like, it's so interesting seeing like the different takes that people sort of have on that side of things. Like Stu's social media cops it. Obviously, he's got a massive following now, but you get a lot of people that are actually in the industry that I don't know if it's a jealousy thing or what, but they come at you in the sense that like, oh, you're dramatizing things, you're making Snake the enemy, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and
it's like, a fucking TV show, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, no, we're not making the snakes the enemy. Yes, things need to be, you can't just, like, if I went to catch a snake the way I would normally, I say like 2 words, I like rock up and go, hey, how you going? Where's the snake? And they're like, oh, it's over there. No worries. Snake's in the bag. Okay, cool. See you later. It's like, people aren't going to watch that. You have to drag everything out. You have to talk more about everything. You have to elaborate more on anything. You have to act like it's the first time you've seen that snake in your life, so that people can actually understand how exciting these animals actually are. All that kind of stuff. And yeah, like even then you'll watch things and be like, oh, I could have been a bit more excited about that, even though it's like the 1,000th, bloody tree snake I've caught. But you want people to appreciate how amazing those animals are. And we're the ones who see the difference it makes, like we get people coming up to us and being like, oh, I was so scared of snakes, but now I'm not after seeing that show, because I have learnt so much more about them, which is, again, exactly why we all do what we do in the wildlife education space, because the more people know about things, the less they fear them, so like there's a lot of people that fear snakes just because they don't know anything about them. They're that misunderstood animal, of course. So after seeing those shows, they're like, yep, I'm way more comfortable with them now. They know they're not out to get them, and that's what it's all about. So
that's what it's all about. And at the end of the day, those TV shows and anything sort of similar, they're not made for the experts or
Yeah,
for the
exactly.
professional snake catchers or
Yeah.
whatever. It's for the
Yeah.
everyday punter who might not know.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. And that's what we have to keep reminding ourselves as well, because you get in your own head, you're like, oh, I'm talking to people that know what they're talking about. But it's like, no, don't even think about those people. And it's the same with social media stuff. You kind of have to put those people out of your mind, or depending on who you're targeting for your content, obviously. But it's like so many people don't know a single thing. So you got to be talking to those people as well. So, yeah.
How important would you say social media is, I guess, for your business specifically?
Yeah, it's super important. Like it is the biggest advertising we do for sure. So I don't know.
It's
It's the
pretty
ad.
much free.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, obviously all the posts and stuff is great advertising. We do pay for. We've got one ad that we pay for.
Yeah.
That's been going for like probably 2 years now. Pretty much just summarizing everything. You know, one of those stop scrolling, and there's like, we do bring wildlife out to kids' parties, daycare centers. You know, just listing everything and all that kind of stuff. And I think, that's done pretty well for us. And then obviously the SEO side of things on the websites and everything like that is super important. So you're organically up pretty high in the Google searches, and the reviews and everything like that all helps. But yeah, social media is definitely a big part of it, and we want it to be a way bigger part of it as well. Like it's one of those things that we keep saying. We're like, oh, we've got to put more time and effort into it, because it can be a whole additional income on top of what we do. You know, like there's so many people out there now that obviously make a massive living off YouTube and social media, and that could be, on top of what we do now, and we've got the perfect setup for it. So we've had one girl do social media stuff for us over the years, and then she sort of left, and we've got one girl doing it now, but we do just have to prioritize it a bit more, because we are really keen to get more out there for people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like you said, you've got a fantastic foundation. You know, you and Adele both with your presentation experience and skills, and then obviously your animals and your work now. It's a perfect foundation to build a really big social media following, I reckon.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, Mick, we've covered just about everything. I'm pretty happy to round things out there if you are.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah, again, thanks so much for having me on, and well done for what you do as well. Like, it's awesome having somebody else in the space that's actually interviewing people. Because I'll jump in the car and be like, oh, let's look for a podcast to look up, and there's not a whole lot of it, is there, in the wildlife space? So it's so good to be able to jump in the car and drive for hours listening to people talk about something you're passionate about. So yeah, well done.
Thanks, mate. Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's been a bit of fun. I've enjoyed this. I reckon I said we've covered everything, but I reckon we could go for another hour or so easily. But
Yeah.
hey, I'll put all the links in the show notes, of course. But if people are looking for you, whereabouts can they find you?
Business is Wildlife Unleashed @. So it's just at Wildlife Unleashed. It should come up on either Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you name it. And then my own accounts, Mullet Mick. So at Mullet Mick, and check us out there.
Beauty. Thanks, Mick. I
Awesome.
appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks so much, mate. Catch you soon.
No worries. As always, everyone, thanks so much for listening. Feel free to reach out on Instagram at joemac.uthl. Like, subscribe, and follow along. Cheers.